okay with those 30 minutes, I guess. You've all been in a Sunday school class where, man, there's always that teacher who's got to get through all his notes. I have not had class until I got to the last page, and I finished. Okay, now I feel successful. And then half the class walks out going, man, we missed out on so much meat that we could have dealt with and, gone through that. There are certain times it makes more sense. I mean, like today, we have content to go through. But if the Lord told me, said, Tim, make a change, I'm going to make a change on the fly, because that's just the way I do things, because I try to be sensitive to that. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Is for Bob, his wife has to be, the church has to recognize that's happening, first of all, and they have to decide, as a church, are you guys okay with their format? Because it may work for them, especially in light of COVID. As we talked about last couple of sessions, how much isolation everybody's dealing with right now. It's hard. I've talked to a lot of people, and at Ray's church, you got a really nice children's minister, and Julie, and her dad is in retirement home. I think like almost across the street from the church, like literally across the street from the church. And she didn't see him for 4+ months. Like, she wasn't allowed to see him. And he doesn't like the social media and doesn't like to even text. So she basically was isolated. He was isolated from his family completely. And it really wasn't his choice. I want to be in person. I mean, it's not an option. So some of that ministry is not about, I mean, we've got to get the message, the word of Christ into everybody's lives. I get that, and Bible study is critical. It's important, but I never want to take away from that. But we can be creative in how we pull that off. It doesn't always have to fit in that 50-minute session. Fair question. I mean, any other responses? That's a great question, because it's something we all struggle with. Yes, sir.
We saw the same thing going on in our with our connect groups or Sunday groups for everyone home. And so we didn't want to really hinder that, because we thought it would be good to get that interaction. So in addition to that Zoom meeting, our teaching pastor, the pastor who's over all the connect groups, he actually teaches the lesson on Facebook Live on Thursdays. It's recorded. It's sent out to all the members of all the connect groups. So now the connect group, well, it's 30 to 40 minutes of them chit-chatting. They've already saw the lesson being taught, and then now the chit-chat, which is relational, then turns into applicational. They talk about the lesson as well. So the teachers in the connect groups don't keep as much.
And there's a lot of value to that model of content that's more intentional, like a lesson, and then having dialogue about the content. Because so often we're so focused on the lesson, we don't have time to actually to make it relevant to us. It's like, okay, I mean, it's all, I mean, we love the Bible, we love Scripture, and we get all that. Man, we're sandwiching a whole lot into a small amount of time. Yes, sir.
I was going to say we took a little bit of an intentional approach like that, where our Sunday school class, basically, for the lack of a better term, had a social at a park, a local park, and we were all together. We had masks, kind of spread out, but we were together at that point. That was very much more of a social time. So it was something that was set outside of our regular Bible study Zoom time, which still has social time in it as well. I mean, but that was one of the things we did, was create other opportunities to be together and to kind of socialize.
It's interesting. Personalities are all over the map on that one. Like, you think about an adult Sunday school class, just for example. Most of the class drinking coffee or something, drinks or whatever you're offering into the church. And, sometimes they have snacks. Some of the classes do snacks. Some are like very religious about their snacks. And it's their time to kind of reconnect, because a lot of them have not talked to each other like all week. And so this is the time where we get to have some connection. This is even irrelevant to COVID, just church. So there's that time. And then you have those people they could do this all the whole time. They're totally cool with that, They're like, well, we got to get to the lesson. So you got to have all kinds of variations of that. So I think you got to find the dynamics of that particular group, and to figure out what's best for that group. And as long as the message of Christ is not changed, and is still being translated and communicated to people, I think that's important. I don't really care how you present the gospel, as long as you're presenting the true gospel. Just don't change the message at all. I don't care how, because at my age, I've seen a lot of changes in churches over the years, how church used to exist and how it exists today and how it will exist in the future. As long as the message hasn't changed, I don't think it makes a difference how we worship or anything else. It's everybody's got an opinion on that one. But any other response to Bob's good question? I'm Tim, and who are you?
I'm Casey.
Bro,
I work at PSK.
PSK, and you're in PSK.
Yes, my name's Brian.
Brian, I think I asked you. What do you do there?
I'm on the audit side.
Oh, then I don't know you. Are you from PSK too?
Yeah,
Natalie. Okay, nice to meet you. Thank you for lunch. Appreciate that. What other questions are there that were brought up, or have anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
So, I don't know if I know the answer, but I should know the answer being a tech guy. What's the maximum Wi-Fi distance you can, and I'm saying that for a reason. So everybody thinks that Wi-Fi is the best thing that ever existed. But how far away from a Wi-Fi antenna can you get to still get good?
It depends on the antenna. There's a unit right back there on the ceiling that obviously covers this whole room, that kitchen. Now this building is old. It has some solid walls. I know, I've been in every part of this building, every attic you can imagine. I've been in this section up here. Kind of scary. I crawled down there before. Oh my gosh. So it all depends on the structure of the building, that type of antennas. We use Unify antennas everywhere, so we're big fans of those. And depends on the model. So that one's an AC model, the long range unit, so it has a longer range. But they have pro models that have more stronger ranges, but less distance. They have, it depends on the model. It depends on the product you're using. Home uses, I mean, a lot of people are like going, well, my internet works great, down where my antenna is, but if I go up to my son's room, it doesn't work great. Well, in that case, that's probably on purpose. But anyways, he's on the second floor, and yeah, it all depends on the particular models. That'll vary a lot. And that's one thing we do when we go in and visit a church for the first time especially when we first come in as IT consultants, we come in and talk about your infrastructure the way you're already set up right now. A lot of people just are so used to what we've always had, they don't change anything. And I'm going, man, I could change everything and make it much better, And we like to overlap everything. So this unit will cover certain areas, another unit will cover another area, and so we'll typically, almost every church I work at, you can walk in almost every part of every campus, and you can just keep walking and not lose it. And we have churches that have multiple buildings. We have churches that have multiple, like you used to have, go across the street for a different building, all kinds of different challenges. So we don't like Wi-Fi to hit the outside, because of course we lock everything down. I turned the guest network off today for our meeting because I just didn't need the extra bandwidth usage. But we used to have a lot of people come and just drive up right here out of this building and just suck in your free guest Wi-Fi. The problem with that is a liability issue. If they're doing porn, and they will, or whatever they're doing, it's on your connection. If they do something criminal-like, you have a chance of being liable for that. So, we're not going to leave it that open. And so people got smart and started locking it down. But anyways, yes, sir.
So do you all do assessments? Like, for example, there's a business administrator that just landed at a new church. They have their IT scene all going up, but they just want to kind of get somebody's opinion on whether they have a good setup or not, or if there's holes in it or things that they could do differently. Is that the kind of...
Yeah, our RT side division of our company will do just what you said, especially when there's transitions of staff transitions. A lot of times churches, administrators are coming to churches, or people come into churches, and nobody's documented anything. Right. Nobody couldn't tell you where that switch connection goes to, what port that goes to. They got a lot of cables everywhere, and I don't know where it goes. I don't even know how to know where it goes, kind of thing. And so we go in and evaluate as much or little as they're willing to have done. If they want it all completely done, we'll give you a quote saying, this is probably going to take this long, this is what the cost is, and we'll take care of all that for you. and then if that's all we do, that's all we do. We just give you a report and we're done. And others like, well, can you just keep managing all the time? We'll just hire you guys on a regular basis. That's our big part of our company is that portion.
Are you Tim?
I am Tim.
Okay, very good. Nice
So
to meet
there's my card.
you. Yeah.
So
You work with people in Dallas?
anywhere in anywhere in the state, yeah,
Okay.
but mostly DFW.
Okay.
We used to do a lot of work in San Antonio.
I had a request yesterday for somebody to do that.
Yeah, well, that's
anybody.
yeah. Well, now you do. So, are we ready to start the next session? I just realized the timing of that. Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, we are going to begin. I'm going to say something that you've already heard. They haven't heard, but and then three of you haven't heard. But real quick here, back to what I said before. I'm still a Christian. That hasn't changed since lunch. That's important to my life. And I'm a husband to my beautiful wife, who happens to be here today and helping us. She's our chat moderator. Her name is Jen, with 2 N's. So they're very important, 2 N's. And Jen with 2 N's. And she's our chat moderator and keeping an eye on the people who are online. And I appreciate those who have been online. And I have, between the two of us, we have 6 kids. And I'm a grandfather. Oh, my gosh. Can't believe I need my cane now. Anyways, 2 grandkids. Love them. 5-year-old and 2-ish-year-old, I think. She's adorable. And I'm also CEO of the MinistryCraft company that I started originally as the Fern Foundation, TFF Inc. as our corporate name. And we have been doing this over 20 years, and I have been ridiculously blessed to get paid for over 20 years to do what I love to do. But it's way more than just a company. We are a corporation, technically speaking, not a nonprofit. We try to be for profit, at least we try to be. But we chose that model specifically because we felt like we could be more effective, and it's really been a good model for us. Our organization, just like he just asked, we're an IT company, manages IT services for churches. And nonprofits, 98% of our business is faith-based nonprofits, churches, associations, conventions. We've worked with both the Baptist conventions in Texas and other Baptist conventions, a lot of associations all over the country, and a ton of stuff. The other division is website division. We're a full management service company that manages your website completely. You don't have to do anything except for send us some content. We do all the content posting, all the marketing for it, the SEO marketing, stuff like that you don't want to pay somebody else to do it, and we just do it. It's part of our services that we do, and I just feel very blessed. So I'm going to go ahead and pray, and then we'll begin, all right? Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you again, once again today, that for us to be able to be here, to have a few moments to talk to each other and to be able to interact. And Lord, I ask that this time will be well worth the time for our time to be here. We ask that you'll bless it, and we thank you so much. Amen. A couple of basic things to note. We may have some technical glitches. We got lots of cameras going on in here. Hey, Ray, did you turn that camera on? Yeah, thank you. And Ray is our managing all the live stream. We have the Zoom meeting going on. We had some Zoom audio quality issues, so we're also live streaming to MinistryCraft's YouTube channel, to Facebook's channel, as well as Twitch, which you don't care about. Anyways, but there's a reason for that. But nevertheless, so we have had a few people who switched over from Zoom over to YouTube because they have better quality sound. So yeah, it is what it is. If you have questions in person, small enough group, just raise your hand, and if I can answer it, I will. If I can't, or I have to postpone it, I will do that as well. If you're online, which camera am I on? If you're online, please put your question into the chat box. Not that it's over there, but she's over there, and she will flag me and let me know there's a question, and we'll try to get that answered for everybody if at all possible. So our third and final session for today, and by the way, I've enjoyed every moment, so thank you for this opportunity to be here, is effective live streaming impact the world. And that, if you heard the first thing I said, and the three of you that were new did not hear it, but Acts 1:8 was my passage that the Lord brought in my heart to just reach the whole world. And this is our whole world, extend into the earth, into the world section of the Acts 1:8 verse passage. So it just seemed to fit this whole 3 sessions right in a row. You know, it's easy. Okay, I say easy, relatively easy to put together a live stream. It actually can be very easy. Some of you just like, well, my iPhone, just turn it on, hit live stream, I'm done. That's how easy it is to do that. Is it effective? Oftentimes it really is. Sometimes you need a little bit more. So we are going to cover some live stream content related to the sanctuary environment, because that's really what most people think of live stream initially, and then other things of mobile environments and other types of things as well. So Let me define, according to something online, what live stream is. Transmit or receive of live video and audio coverage for an event or over the internet. Essentially, it's just moving of data of video and audio to and forward, usually outgoing, but it can be both ways, for an event or some kind of thing. Like we're live streaming to Zoom today, that would be technically considered live stream. We're also going to the YouTube and other places as well. So those are all live stream. To operate a successful live stream experience for your church, it is essential to have the right equipment and the right people in place, as well as software, everything else. And I'm going to talk a lot about more of the sanctuary environment, because that's where a lot of people are still trying to get a grasp of, and some of the pros and cons and all that, how that all works. But I'm going to also talk about the equipment that we use, not to break it down in detail, but just the basic concept of it. I'm not trying to get too technical, I promise that, in a very practical, application-oriented way to do that. So one of the questions we used to hear all the time is, why do we need to live stream? People used to say to me before COVID, it was like, seriously, like who's going to watch us online? There's a couple people. Now you heard me in the first 2 sessions going, you know me, if one person's online, it's worth it. In my opinion, it is worth it, all right? Because you can change the life of people. And you heard the testimonies I shared and the stories we shared in the first couple hours, how important making an impact on one person's life can have a total impact on the rest of the people they interact with, like my friend Robert, who became a different person after that night, which I still want to cry because it's awesome. And then we're going to talk about some of the technical things. Okay, so we asked this question, why do we need to live stream? And then something hit our world called COVID. You all have heard it. Lots of people can't stop hearing it. It's driving us crazy. And then the questions changed. How do we live stream became a very important question. What should we live stream? What was the third question I got asked? Financial people should be able to answer this one. Yeah, exactly. I figured you'd have to know that one. Is how much is it going to cost us to live stream? It all depends on what you're doing, all right? I have a PTZ camera right there. It's pointing back there. It's an Ada brand camera. You can buy Panasonic. You can buy whatever the heck you want to buy. That brand is awesome. They make PTZ Optics makes another brand. There's a lot of brands of that type of moving camera. We put that on a tripod. Normally we'd mount that into the sanctuary, and we'll have 1, 2, or 3 cameras that'll be in that room, depending on the production value and the amount of money they want to spend. And then we can control all that camera from one cord, which is on the floor right now, because it's a temporary setup, from the production guy that's sitting over there in the corner. And it can be in a different room. A lot of times the production team is in a different room. Sometimes they're in the sanctuary, so a whole different dynamic. But we can control all the cameras and a lot more from different places. Now, interesting enough, this camera here, this TV here, is showing content from a little box. It happens to be a bird dog decoder, which you don't care about the details so much. But this thing can be attached to any television, anywhere on the campus, at any time, and I can show whatever content I want to show on this screen. If he wanted to change it to, I'm not going to, but if he wanted to change it to a different set of content from a different computer, different media streamer, whatever you want to do, he could change that in anywhere you want to. So that's internal streaming. So in other words, we can control the content that shows to your youth department, different than it shows to the children's department, different than it shows into the adult department. It can all be going on at the exact same time from streaming technology that we put together for churches to help them communicate a message that is relevant to them based on what they're trying to do. So it's really kind of cool. And there is actually, I don't have it plugged in today, but I have one back there. We also have boxes, and this one does it as well, but we have little boxes that we can plug into anywhere in the world, unless it's China where they're blocking this probably, but anywhere just about in the world, and we can actually stream to that box from your church. What I mean by that is you could actually literally plug in a box at somebody's house and stream content to their house TV if they have internet. They have to have internet. So the point is we have ability to post a lot of content anywhere you want to, at any time you want to, as long as the technology is set in place to do it. And it's pretty cool. So yeah, we have how do we live stream? Why should we live stream? And then how much is it going to cost us? That's kind of a given oftentimes. One thing that was mentioned, I think, by Lance, but somebody else may have mentioned it this morning, was when you go live on a normal live stream environment, like sanctuary environment, even not just that, but especially that, You're now a multi-church campus. How many of you guys are already a multi-church campus before the live stream? Did you have any churches have multiple campuses? Okay, none here, I don't think. So they were, but they left, so they don't count anymore. No, the Hills, they have 3 campuses. One of them I drive by like every day out by the west side of town. And so they have all kinds of technology they push to all the different campuses. So Christ Chapel has multiple campuses, other things like that. So the point is that there are physical multiple campuses. I'm talking about virtual campuses, obviously. So if we're a church and we're live streaming, which we are, this would be one campus, our people, our regular folks, and then the online campuses are different. Now, I personally believe that the Facebook group, and I talked a little bit about this during my social media content, and the content for a YouTube channel are generally two sets of people. Some are crossover, but they're 2 different campuses, and how you communicate to them, it really varies a lot. Okay, and so one of the things we look at is if I'm communicating to the people online, which is that camera right in front of me, say I'm preaching, and I'm looking to my audience here, that's normal, like if I'm a preacher, which I'm not, but if I was, then I communicate, look around, do what I do, pace around, however I do that. But if I ignore that campus, which is hard to do, sometimes it's hard to focus on the camera that's in front of you or that side camera or whatever, I'm not sure I'm at. This camera, there I'm there. Is that, whatever camera I'm looking at is to make sure that I'm communicating with them as well. I remember when we went to COVID at our church, everything was straight online. So our pastor was always preaching right to the camera. As soon as they started bringing us back into the building, I watched the live stream as well. He forgot about the camera. So, you know me, I have to tell him. So I it's like, don't forget about the rest of us because we're not in the building. And you completely ignored, I didn't say it meanly. Well, meanly, is that word? No. I was, please don't forget about the rest of us. And it was kind of cool. Next week, guess what? He looked at the camera. He didn't forget the rest of the people. And so a point is, I'm trying to say is that people have to recognize that that's a whole different audience that we have to communicate with. We're so used to people just showing up on Sunday morning. And we talked about this before, but sometimes they don't. And a lot of people even said during lunch today, we don't know who our members are anymore because we don't know who's showing up. It takes some effort, a lot of intentional effort to decide how am I going to identify who's showing up in person, who's showing up online, and to communicate to those people, like we said before as well. So here's some basic benefits of live streaming. We can reach members who can't make it to church, maybe because of the pandemic, or they're homebound, or they're traveling. Now, the traveling thing has always been the way we've been able to convince people. Well, people travel, they want to be connected to your church. I'm not going to speak for any of you, but I know sometimes when I'm traveling, I'll be honest, if I'm in Arkansas in the podunk nowhere, in some cabin, Sunday morning comes around, either I'm traveling back or I'm not awake yet or something. I don't know. It's hard to be connected sometimes. So don't just assume that just because they're traveling, they're connected to you. All right? Because if you don't tell them that you're online, they won't even know. Now, if you're on YouTube, what you hear in every YouTube channel, everybody always says the same thing. What do they always say? Yeah, like would be Facebook and share, and then say on YouTube it's what? Subscribe, because they always point down. Subscribe to our channel. They got big buttons sometimes down there. Oops, excuse me. Subscribe to our channel. And then make sure, and they also say, usually on YouTube, hit the bell and hit the all button. The reason they do that is if you don't do that, they will never know you went live. And so you always want to make sure that you tell people over and over and over again to subscribe to our channel, hit like and share, and everything else. All right? Facebook's different. Facebook's a closed group. And so when you're online on Facebook, you're automatically notified because you're online and you're connected. You follow them as well. Whereas YouTube, if you don't do that subscribe button, you're never going to know they went live. And I had to set up a church, and I always subscribe to, like everybody I work with. And so I got to subscribe to the channel. And I know they went live because I set them all up. And I'm like, why did I get a notification? I went back and go, oh, I forgot to hit the subscribe button. So got notified after that. So that's important, all right? So it sounds so basic, but it is really important. Also, there's some logistical reasons why you want to do that. Part of that reason as well is because you have your URL, your website address for your, let's say, YouTube channel. You have to get a minimum of 100 people to subscribe, which is not that big a deal in most churches, and you have to be online for 30 days. After that, you can customize your URL. It's like, that's not a big deal. It's not a big issue, but makes you more personal, makes it more relational driven. So that's important as well. Excuse me. One of the other benefits is it expands your ministry base besides your local community. Now, some churches, like their local community is not their ministry base. Everybody comes in from outside, depending on demographics. But for the most part, whether your community is physically located to you or not. I did a demographic study of this church, one of my clients here, and there are people come from all over. There's people from Weatherford that drive here to this church. And it's all over the map. And it has changed, and the demographics have drastically changed a lot too. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but you can export your database, pour it into Google Maps, and if you need help, we can help you with that. And it'll map out everywhere your people live, all right, if the data is correct. Nice thing about that is I actually had a church print out, I couldn't believe it, as big as that wall, a map of all their people with the little push pins everywhere. And they categorize them based on, I think, ages. So their database poured in the data as well, how old they were. The reason they did that was they were studying how many people live in that community. How many people live in that community? Should we have a home group over there? Should we have a home group over here? There's only 4 people over there. There's 20 families live over here. That's a good point. And it was really kind of cool. So the point is they were using technology to help them understand who's around. A little off track. All right, you can also you can record, and you should record every live stream in most cases. And because once it's recorded on YouTube, which is by default, actually not default, but if you set it up correctly, it would be default, is to make sure that when your recording is done, when your streaming is done, it automatically encodes and records that stream, and it's available forever. Now, Twitch does not keep them forever, Facebook, keeps them pretty long, I think. I'm not sure how long it is. I'm sorry, I should know the answer to that one. YouTube, I don't think ever deletes anything unless you're politically incorrect. That's a different issue. They'll delete whatever the heck they want to, or inappropriate content or stuff like that. And that's a different issue. But in most cases, that's not going to happen. And then one other thing also, another benefit of live streaming, it develops relationships with members and others that you may have never had before. So we talked about the different people that you're finding in your church that are not even in your church, that are connected to your church now. To me, that's another audience. That's a very valid audience that you want to tap into. Because if they like it, guess what they're going to do? They're going to tell their family, their friends, man, I'm connected. My mom watches member churches all over. She loves Willow Creek, is that right? Over there in California. I forgot the pastor's name all of a sudden. Anyways, some pastor. Anyways, and so she obviously never going to be there, but she feels connected to that church just because of the YouTube channel. I may have the wrong. It's Willow Creek's in Chicago. Saddleback, thank you. I'm sorry. Rick Warren, that's what I'm trying to say. And of course, he's a big preacher, so a lot of people connect to him. And by the way, have you ever watched his streams? It's very personal. He really doesn't make it all big, fancy production. I mean, they can, and they have tons of money, but they really do a lot of personal stuff. Whether you agree with him or not, that's not the point. The point is, from a relationship-driven person, he's really good at doing that. No question about that. And you also can, everybody loves, all you guys will like this part, you can also help your online tithing opportunities if you live stream. Now, when you're live streaming, if you're back in regular mode now, and your people are showing up in your church, you want people to give online. When somebody says in the service, this is time, to give, and most people are now giving it the buckets in the back or something like that. Not a lot of tithing. I don't think we're ever going to see the little thing going, the tithing plate go around much anymore. That's probably a thing of the past anymore. At least for a while it will be. But nevertheless, that is something that a lot of people are recognizing, that we have an opportunity to be able to hit that connection button. Now, those who don't, and I'm not going to ask you because I don't want to embarrass, but if you're not doing online giving, you need to do it tomorrow, like right away. Every church, almost, if they do it correctly, statistically speaking, have found when you do online giving, your overall giving goes up. There's a direct relationship. And so why would you not do it? We talked about earlier about that 3% or whatever your fees you're paying for it. I'd rather have $97 than zero. It makes a lot of sense. And so understand that there's a lot of value in this day and age. And if you can encourage them to, let me give you an example. My mom, who's 81, doesn't know anything about technology. And she was like, online giving kind of scary. It's like, they'll hack into my bank account. I said, no, Mom, it's actually more secure. I can hack your checking account. That's easy. Oh, don't say that out loud. But anyways, that's relatively easy. Give me a check, and just about anybody that knows what they're doing can freak a check out. That's not a big deal. The reality is it's much safer for her to do an online transaction than it is to do a check, because you don't know where that check's going to go, who's going to have it, and who's going to touch it. And a lot of people, they keep their checks, and they're not supposed to. They keep a big pile of checks in their offices, in the financial office, and they're supposed to shred them, but they don't. So it happens. And so online giving, and so I went ahead and showed her how to do an online giving, and at the end of the online giving, she goes, can I just make it so it automatically does it? I said, oh, your church would love you if you do that, Mom. And so it was like 10 seconds later, we just changed it. So the point is that understand that those types of things are in place to allow you to do that. All right, so how do we actually live stream? A lot of different ways. Today we have a computer in the back. It's running a vMix software. It's our management software. We didn't buy any major big switchers. Blackmagic is a company. Blackmagic Design has nothing to do with witchcraft, but it's a very popular product that's out there that is designed for media connection. We use a lot of their products. However, for this particular setup, and in fact the same setup we have in this church, we have a couple of their capture cards in there, but we don't have any switchers or anything like that. It's all done through software and through incredible, powerful computers. That one's not a powerful computer, but the one they have in the other room really is. And nevertheless, we can control multiple cameras, as many cameras as we need to, as long as they have the right technology in place. We can control the environment. If we have a green screen, we can throw a green screen up and do a fake background. It's all controlled from the right essential equipment. The main things to have is, the most important thing is high-speed internet. I think I mentioned that earlier. Having the fastest internet you can afford, or even more. If your internet's not fast enough, find a way to find some money to get it bumped up. I have a church in an environment, I think they're out in Willow Park area, because their Willow Park political issues with Spectrum, they don't like each other. And so they won't let Spectrum come into their area, and all they have is AT&T Uverse. And that particular situation, at that location, the AT&T Uverse is horrible. So they're really struggling because they're like going, we want to do more live streaming, and our internet's so bad, we really can't do much. It puts them in a very difficult position. So we're looking at some options to help them with that as well within their budget. So high-speed internet. Besides the internet itself, what do you think is the most important thing when it comes to live streaming? Want to try again? Any other guesses? Audio. If they can't hear you, but they can see you, they're gone. If they can't hear you, and I was like, we've got issues with our audio. If they can't hear your audio, they don't, or if it's like that, which you've all heard before at least one time on some transmission, they're going to go, switch channels, or just turn it off altogether. If your audio is bad, people are relatively tolerable about camera issues, as long as it's not ridiculously bad. But yeah, that's the second one, I think, is cameras are critical. So audio is by far the most important. Now, the number one thing I struggle with, I'm not a sound guy. Ray is much more of a sound guy than I am, and he knows a lot about that stuff. But one of the things that people struggle with is getting the sound guys, who's been there forever, and his ability to get that quality sound for the mix, for the stream, to work out well. There's a lot of technical glitches that seem to happen right there. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. One of the things we have found is that when you're streaming for we call a house, which means your church sanctuary, and you're streaming for the stream. You're pushing audio for your stream. They're two different mixes. All right, and if you have good quality sound guys who know what the heck I'm talking about, they will know how to mix it separately and run it through different channels and all kinds of stuff. If you have guys who just do it on a volunteer basis and kind of hope to make it work, it's probably going to sound pretty bad. So there's a lot of issues when it comes to sound, but that's critical that it does capture. We have a capture device back there. It's capturing the audio off of that little soundboard in the back. So as he's recording, it's automatically being recorded and encoded and pushed out to the internet just on demand. It's really cool. A couple $100 part does everything you need to do. And then quality cameras. Those are definitely important. Depending on your budget. I think I mentioned a church earlier today that spent $37,000 on their kitchen remodel. And when COVID hit, the pastor is like, Tim, how much is it going to cost to do live stream? And I gave him a quote and I actually was very conservative on our quote for him because I know his budget and I know the church really well. And he was like, well, we can't afford that. I said, well, that's what it is. I'm not, and so I came up with a kind of he goes, can you give me at least a little bit less price? Maybe I could cut some corners or something. I can, and I did. I gave him a kind of a less expensive version of that, which I was hesitant, but I went ahead and did it because I know they needed the live stream. They were stuck. And so he presented it to the finance committee and all their people, and they all turned it down. They're like, we don't want to spend that kind of money. Man, I have never seen a pastor so mad in my life. He's like, this is ridiculous. We just spent $37,000 to remodel a kitchen. We didn't even need to remodel, and you're not willing to spend a couple $1,000s on a very basic system? He was angry, not at me, at them. And he shared it with them. He shared it with me and them, but he wasn't angry at me. But I thought was interesting was he recognized that we have got to do something. They have to do something fast because they had nothing at the time. They weren't prepared for this at all. And so he went back and said, I'll pay for it myself. Well, I didn't want him to pay for himself. But he was able to finally convince the finance committee to spend some money. It was just a really unusual situation. But the point was that even for a small church, a couple grand is a lot of money. I get it. Some of my churches spend $15,000, $20,000 on a live stream setup because it's worth it to them, because they see the value. So understand that. I have one church that spent we didn't actually do the install. Somebody else did it, and they spent over $50,000 on their live stream setup. Way overcharged them. A whole different issue. But I was like, man, I would send half that equipment back. But anyways, and they did. So that was kind of cool. But nevertheless, they just didn't know. So they just followed somebody's advice and said, that sounds good to us. Let's get it done. Quality equipment, cameras, quality software. That's important. A good computer to handle it, that's kind of a no-brainer. You can run your live stream on a laptop for your church, but I don't recommend it because there's a lot of limitations on inputs and outputs of your equipment. That thing. Another thing is lighting. Now, a little ironic, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say is I have a lot of churches that are older that I work with that have a lot of unique challenges in lighting. These are not so bad. These are fans, but we have one church not too far from here that got a bunch of chandeliers in there. And I was like, dude, I would get rid of all your chandeliers. He goes, pastor said, if I did, they'll kill me. The old people in the church would kill me. I was like, what do you mean they're going to kill you? He goes, well, they have been here forever, and we can't get rid of the chandeliers. I was like, okay, who's in charge here? But anyways, apparently the people who were submitting the money are in charge. The point what he was trying to make was, I'm not allowed to get rid of the chandeliers. Now, I don't know your churches for the most part, but all I know is if it's going to take away from doing a good job and doing what you need to do, you got to get rid of the chandeliers. I mean, that's up to you guys, and I'm not going to, that's not my place to argue that, but I'm right in this situation. I would go as little as possible in the front of the screen. This church here, I'm not making this up. You can ask the pastor later on, Donald. I did a consultation for their live stream. We showed them all the cameras. We installed their equipment. And if you go into this sanctuary, it's a nice big sanctuary. It used to hold 600+ people. Now they're about 100 right now. But anyways, there's a lot of browns, and the carpet's all red. Oh my gosh, cameras hate red. That's like it looks like bleeding. It's just not good. And then it's an older congregation, so they have a choir area, their stage, and a bunch of chairs. And guess what color all the chairs were? They're all red. It doesn't translate well with live streaming. And so a couple weeks ago I was here. This was a few months ago. We'd had this conversation. I told him, I said, I would gut this out, remodel this, take this out, move this around. I would expand your stage, blah, 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 and I'd get rid of the red, at least as much as you can. And a few weeks ago I was here. I went into the sanctuary, came back out. Donald goes, did you see anything different? I was like, oh, I saw something different. I'm really happy. He goes, what? We got rid of the chairs. So the point was, he goes, however, what are we going to do when people come back? I said, you got to use a different color chair or something else, or just don't have them standing the whole time. I don't know, whatever you want to do. But the point was that those are little things that a lot of people don't even see unless you know to look for them. They're important in regards to how the live stream translates as well. This situation, we got a lot of clutter back here. I don't recommend a lot of clutter items. I keep it very simple, and in most cases, that would be the right thing to do. Your team members, your volunteer team, that's critical. Most people are struggling. Huge churches are struggling getting anybody to volunteer for the media team. I think, was it Bob? Somebody was talking about this, was that it's hard to get people to commit. I want to be part of that team. Now, some people love it. And hold it up real high, the joystick, the Xbox. So this little Xbox $20 controller we bought on Amazon controls all the cameras. Can control as many cameras as I want, usually 3 to 4 at the most, but and I can put as many as those. It's a $20 controller. You know how much people are spending for controllers, for little thingies like this? Like 15 grand. I spent $20, and it works better than their stupid controller. I'm not making, and it's totally programmable. So the point is that you can do that. You just have to know about it. But their when I brought that controller into one of my churches one time, he goes, "Oh, great, we got lots of teenagers." I was like, "Oh, I'm not a big fan of teenagers being involved in some stuff I do." But they brought this one teenager into the training, and he was so scatterbrained. He was like, "Oh, I love to play with joysticks, with his Xbox," but he didn't understand production value. He didn't understand what they're really there for. To him, it was like playing a game. I said, well, it is kind of like playing a game, but it's real. You're impacting people's lives. And then practice before you go live. A lot of our training, my training that I do for our churches is over 6 hours long. It is an intense, detailed training with a little small break lunch break in the middle of it. We go through every little detail of how to make this production awesome and really well. The problem is people get trained and they want to go live on Sunday. I did a training on a Saturday one time. We're going to go live tomorrow. I said, no, you're not. Please don't. And they decided to go live the next day, and it was a disaster because they weren't prepared for it. It was too much information. So we recommend a lot of practice. Make sure before you go live that you actually know what you're doing and get it well as well. Why should we live stream? These are kind of no-brainers, I guess, but primarily so that the people can the main reason is people watch your church live stream is they want to see how the preacher preaches and your worship style. That is the two main things why people, at least who are checking you out, are finding out why they're live streaming, is to find out those two elements of your organization. Before they're going to check out your website and oftentimes your YouTube channels now before they ever visit your church. If they're thinking about going to your church, they should be going online first. In most cases, they are. And in most cases, they're watching it right here. Most live streams are watched on their phones. Most people don't sit in front of the computers at home on Sunday morning. Now, we have a big TV in our house. We have YouTube channel on there. We have smart TV thingies, whatever. We just go to the YouTube channel, join it, and we're watching the service. The negative side of that is there's no chat function. I like to chat. So I don't have an option to chat. Which I'll talk about in a second. When you're watching on television, it's a little different. But the things that you can stream with, obviously, we talked about your actual service. She mentioned earlier about the, what did she call it? The Moments of Hope. 5-minute video segments that they do to encourage people. A lot of churches are doing those types of moments of hope, 5-minute blurps in the week. Ray's Church does a small couple short segments of the kind of a quick summary of the services and getting people engaged that way to get them to watch the bigger services sometimes or to come in and be a part of the church as well. Bible studies, hybrid Sunday school classes. A lot of people did virtual vacation Bible schools this year. A lot of them, and it was interesting to see all the different variations out there. Did any of your churches do that? Virtual Bible studies? I'm not sure, really didn't take the time to study to see how successful it was, but I know a lot of people poured a lot of time and effort in pre-recording a lot of content and everything else as well. What do you guys, that you know of, are live stream, besides your service, anything else you live stream at all? Yes, sir? Yeah, it's interesting. My wife's father passed away a couple years ago, and out in California. And I had to ask. I'm a techie guy, so I'm like, anybody live streaming this? Facebook or something? Nobody ever asked the question. So I brought it up and I said, can we do it? He's got a ton of followers all over the world. He's a missionary and he was a pharmacist and he was lots of stuff. He's an awesome man. We miss him a lot. But anyways, I said to Jen and to her mom, I said, do we have permission to live stream the funeral? They go, well, I didn't even think about it. I know how to do all that? I said, I'll take care of it all. And I kid you not, this was my live streaming device because that's all I had access to in California, this iPad right here. I put it up on a stand in the balcony, and we live streamed, and we had over 800 people watching it from ton of countries, Sweden, Brazil, and I could go on and on. All the countries all over the world were watching because they knew him from everywhere and were able to be a part of that funeral. Now, I have a personal opinion, little soapbox. I'm not a big fan of weddings being live streamed on the church account because those are more private matters. A funeral, they're members of your church. Now, you can argue that. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. But, that's a matter of some churches will not allow any funerals or weddings to be live streamed. That's their policy. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with the technical part of it. That's up to you. But the funerals are kind of, to me, should be an option at least. But that's up to you. Graduation ceremonies, other types of things that are relevant to the church if you're going to use your church account. Now, if you want to do, if somebody wants to live stream on their Facebook account, their wedding, more power to them. I could care less. But they can even use the equipment. I don't care, but as long as they don't push it out to the church's account. That's just my opinion. There's a lot of places you can live stream. I mean, YouTube, all the regular guys, Facebook and everything else. Twitch, Vimeo, Periscope, and what was the one you mentioned earlier? Duck or Dick? What was it called? The kids one? Kick. Yeah, there's a ton. I mean, there's hundreds of live stream platforms out there today that I've never even heard of. Some are tailored towards children. But one of the things we do recognize is that your content should not be at too many locations. So a lot of people are live streaming primarily, and we recommend YouTube and Facebook. We also recommend that you actually live stream to a place like something like Restream. Restream.io is the website. And that live stream goes to Restream, and then they simulcast that out to YouTube and Facebook at the exact same time. We've gotten really creative on some of the specific, unique situations. With one of my churches in Fort Worth, they have a very big Spanish. It's a white Anglo church, but they have a lot of Hispanic people in the church, and a lot of them have a translator who talks on a microphone, and they have headphones on so they can hear the Spanish translations during the service. And they say, is there any way you can transmit the English and the Spanish at the exact same time to the internet? I was like, I can do anything. Just give me a little bit of time. And 3 days later, we had it simulcasting to the English YouTube channel and the Facebook channel and then the Hispanic church's Facebook group at the exact same time in different languages from the same equipment. It took a little creativity. Of course, I documented everything in case they changed anything so I could put it all back together again. But it is some really cool stuff that we can do with that. Oops. I went to the wrong place here. Sorry, I moved my page. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, so one of the things that we, wrong place. There it is. All right, we recommend only a couple platforms, YouTube and Facebook for the most part. We use Twitch because, and this was something I learned from Ray's church, was because if you're using church online platform, a lot of churches are using that, you cannot take a live stream, pre-recorded code from YouTube. You have to do it after the fact. And so with Twitch, which is a gaming platform, you can actually take their code, put it into the church online platform, and then nobody will even know it's not coming from YouTube. It doesn't make a difference. They don't care. As long as it shows up on your website, that's all they care about. And so there's all kinds of cool stuff that we can do. So there are two reasons why I don't like to have too many platforms that I stream to. Can you guess why those two reasons are? Any guesses? It's okay to be wrong. The first one is it thins it out too much. It's all about, it's usually about statistics. I've heard a lot of pastors say, our numbers are going down on online platforms. Well, people are showing up in church more, so more people are showing up in church, so some of the people that were online before are now in church, and so there are some changes. So they're a little concerned about their numbers. Baptist churches are always concerned about their numbers, so that's normal. But it's you know what I'm talking about. I'm not making that up. Anyways, and so the reality is that if you have too many platforms out there, you're also confusing people. Like, what do I do? I go to Vimeo? Do I go to YouTube? Do I go to Facebook? You go to whatever you have to go to, but don't have too many platforms, in my opinion. Otherwise, you're going to thin it out way too much. Also, like I said, we use a service called Restream.io. There's actually ways to get it cheaper, but for like $190 a year, something like that, you can get an account, and then you don't have to mess with it for a year. And there's a lot of cool features and functions. You can embed your code on your website if you want to. People ask me that all the time. Can we put the live stream on our website? Yes, you can. Should you? No, you should not. And like, oh, what is he talking about? Why would I not do that? I personally don't think you should. Now, if you're using a church online platform, that is not on your website anyways. That's on a different platform. You're just linking to it. But if you put that content on your website directly, then you can't. All your statistics for YouTube and Facebook are not valid. All right, they're independent. So your data is even thinner out, less not as effective. So that's something to recognize and to see that. Now, unfortunately, for churches, you cannot embed YouTube live on a website directly anyways. The reason is because you have to have 1,000 subscribers, and I don't think any of your churches have 1,000 subscribers, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is you have to monetize it, which means you have to make money, the ads, and none of you can monetize your YouTube channel because you're all nonprofit organizations. If you're a nonprofit organization, unless you're a for-profit church, which I guess exists, if you're a nonprofit church, you're not allowed to monetize, otherwise you violate your 501c3 status, and that becomes an issue. And so you probably already know all that. So that's one reason why, and Google controls that, and that's, until they change it, that's just the way it is. So, but that's okay. The main things that you live stream to are your sanctuary. Let me show you something real quick here. Hopefully I can do it right here in a second. Oops, I don't need that. Close that. Okay, this is vMix software. Can you see my screen? Yeah, there it is. Now, I'm not controlling the camera from here. That camera is hot right there. Hey, Ray, can you pull back a little bit? All right. I'm not actually streaming from my computer because I don't want to. But that left side, if it's on this side, it's a preview screen. If it's on the right side, it's a live screen if we were live, okay? And that camera there, I'm not connected to that camera, but I am connected to the network, which is connected to the camera through a thing called NDI technology. You don't care about that as much. It's a transport technology that allows us to move camera sources through the internet to the network to another device. Now, interesting enough, is I got an iPhone right here. NDI. Let me pull this up and see if this works. Camera. I'll turn it on. All right. I'm going to go ahead and hit this. I'm going to go, let's see if this works. Tim. And of course it's being ornery. I don't know why it's not being very cooperative, but again, I'm not as worried about it right now, but let's try that again. Oh, I hit the wrong one anyways. That would explain why. Okay, there I am. All right, so if we're live, what is your name again? Casey is going to really like this part. We're not live, so don't worry about it. Is I can do an on-demand live stream with her. I can be in a classroom. I can be in a Sunday school class. I could ask her a series of questions. If we were live, it would be pushing that right now. And I'm sure it's like, I don't want to be on the camera. Some people are like, don't be like it. You got to be sensitive. By the way, never do this in a children's classroom unless you have everybody's permission, and that's rare. So, but I can walk around. Let's take Casey, thank you, and come over here. And your first name is Marla, and I'm going to talk to Marla. And so she would be, if we were live, could be shown on the internet. We're not, but if you were, I can ask questions. And so the point is that I just use my iPhone with a little app that comes with the company who makes this product. And I'll cancel that, turn it all off. If I pause it, it pauses the live stream. And the point is that mobile technology is available now for me to push content on all kinds of platforms. And all I did was hit a button, and you became part of the environment. And if your head's starting to go crazy, I can think of this possibility, there's all kinds of things you can do with that if you so choose to do so. So the type of cameras all over the place are everywhere. iPhones are very powerful. PTZ cameras, like the one in front of me, is a very 20x camera. You could go right into my nose if I wanted. Don't do that. But he can get pretty dang close. And then that camera, there's a still camera. I mean, it's a video camera, but it's not it doesn't move around. But it's accessible anywhere in the campus. I can be in the other side of the sanctuary and pulling those cameras up if I wanted to. The point is there's a lot of technology. One of the things I'm going to show here, do it over here. Can you pull up the Mac? Do you have it on there? Just pull up NDI, add the input to NDI, the first Mac input. And you all know, you see on services, they have on the bottom, the words on the bottom of their service. If in a second he should be able to do that. No, it should show up over here. It's used as an overlay. Okay, there it is. And so if they move the words, can you tap on the right button? And then all these words are going to change. So this is all coming. Those words are coming from the Mac that's back there, ProPresenter, and then the other computer is doing all the video portions. You've seen this in service every day. It's so simple to do. It's ridiculous. But people make it more complicated than it have to be. And all I did was have a couple inexpensive computers that pulled this off just as fast. So in our environment, it's like a live environment with a church. We always make sure the technology can handle the load, and it definitely does. So I have one more thing I want to talk about in relationship to this, and then we're going to have Q&A real quick. This is one of my soapboxes, so bear with me. I am a big fan of the ability to communicate. I've asked my staff back there, were people communicating through the live stream and Zoom chat boxes, and they said the first hour was pretty busy for various reasons. And so they answered and asked a lot of questions. And so one of the things we have found is a lot of people turn off their chat function on YouTube for some reason or another. And to me, if you have an opportunity that somebody wants to be part of your service and chooses to be part of that service and wants to ask a question or is struggling with something or whatever that may be, give them the opportunity to do so. Don't take away their chat options. And so that's really something to think about. I believe strongly to having chat moderators, and actually trained chat moderators. At Ray's Church in First Duncanville, they actually hired an iCampus pastor after COVID hit, like almost immediately, part-time guy, and he set up a team of people that were trained by him and a few others how to communicate online to the people that are online. If I walk in your church and you typically, let's say a normal circumstance, and I walk in here and he's the greeter, he's going to greet me. Why don't we do it online? Well, if I'm talking about online giving, why are you not showing me online? There's a lot of things. People are struggling. People are isolated. People want to communicate. Give them every opportunity you have to communicate. And chat moderation is an incredibly easy, free way to do it. Doesn't cost you anything. And there's ways to, like if you have, some people have chat moderators on Facebook. Some people have it on YouTube. With Restream, you can do them all in one location if you want to as well. So you can chat with one, we can answer one question, and it goes to all the channels at the exact same time. There's all kinds of possibilities that we set up for churches. And so a couple of things we recommend in the basic chat operations is welcome everybody to the service. Make sure they're welcome. Make sure they recognize that. Make it personal. Ask timely questions like, how can I pray for you? How can, provide links to online giving, because people will do it, and provide links to members how they can serve. I like that churches are doing that. They're actually providing links that people can click on to say, I want to serve in some capacity, and they click on that. It takes them to that content as well. So chat moderation is a very important component to live streaming. So I know we covered primarily a lot today, but in regards to that, I just want to ask a couple quick questions. In regards to live streaming, is any church in here not live streaming their service right now that you know of? Almost everybody is, right? So somebody set it up for you, and that's good. One of the things we found is a lot of times they're doing it, and some of the churches are really doing a top-notch job. Others are really struggling to get a good quality product out, and because they're like, how cheap can we go? It's up to you, your budget and your situation. But I can't emphasize enough that, if you don't already have it in place, have a good system in place where it's really pretty well polished, set up, and it's easy to manage. That's important, because you want to make sure you're maximizing your dollars and the value you're providing for your people that are part of your ministry, and to recognize that they're just as valid as you are in the building. They just happen to be at home for whatever reason, or traveling or something else. So any negative or positive responses to the online streaming that you've had in your churches? You don't know, do you?
When we first started, we had those of us who were participating online versus when the church opened back up. And we found that that we were there, but we weren't communicating like you were talking about earlier. And so since we, I guess, call it a chat moderator or whatever, but since we've done that, right when we sign on, we immediately welcome those in that viewing circle, and then comment throughout. We'll see someone else sign on, we'll comment, hey, how's it going, and send the little, hearts and balloons and stuff as something comes across that we like, or and then after, the good part is afterwards, we do it from YouTube and Facebook, but we can take, we know who was joining online, and we follow up.
Yeah.
Go and say, hey, it was so good to see you, hadn't seen you in a while, or just something like that. So it is a different community, but one that is probably needier than those that are actually in the service.
Yeah, it's hard to know the answer to that. I mean, if that's true or not. We don't have enough statistics to prove that to be true or not. But their needs are valid, that's for sure. So to ignore them would be wrong. But we live in a very passive society in the sense of our churches are, historically speaking, very passive. What I mean by that is they're just like, well, if they show up, they show up. They don't, they don't. I'm just being real blunt here. And it happens all the time at almost every church I work at. People just, it's so hard to get people to buy into the idea that this is important. What we're doing in regards to the message that we're trying to get across is important. I had where am I at? I had a church, this church, excuse me, that I'm in, and they would tell you the same thing. There's another Baptist church, like literally 100 yards from here, 200 yards from here. Right down there, it's meeting in the community building. And there were some issues with this church saying, I don't like them being so close. But they reach a totally different audience. They weren't even this is an older congregation. That's a much younger congregation. They're actually a spinoff from another church, which I know. So the point I'm trying to make is it's not a competition. We're not trying to compete against your church or your church or your church, and we're in the same city, and both him and I are. It's not a competition. We are just trying to get the message of Christ into people's lives. And that's where all this is really about. You got to do the best with what you have, and you work with that. So I love that you're taking time, and somebody has said, this is worth it. Take the time to be engaged with those people, because they're either going to come back or they're going to go, I still feel like I'm part of your church, whether I'm there or not. That's important, I think. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Jim, I know we're all trying to figure it out. I agree completely with Pat. What we're experiencing is, yes, we've always chatted. We've always had a person. We've been online a long time, as you know.
Yeah.
We've always had that person chatting, but we're finding now, and it's probably just because so many of they used to be physical, are now online. They don't want to be separated out. As in, when we first started, someone would give the welcome in the worship center. The pastor would turn to a camera, and he's welcoming those online. Well, our feedback now is they don't want something different. They want everything to be the same as the physical experience, but they still want the chat also.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, don't separate us out.
Yeah.
We're part of you. But yet they want to be separate because they want to talk all through church.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Before COVID hit, our motto was always, if you can simulate the in-service experience, that would be the ideal situation. I'm shifting my brain a little bit because I think what you're saying is true, by the way, is that audience that was the regular members, they're still part of your church. But you got to understand, they're not the only ones there. There is a whole segment of people that are on your service. I've been on your service before. I don't go to your church. I used to, but I don't. It's a long time ago now. And I watch it once in a while because I love Southcliff, and I have for years. And so, but I'm not directly involved. But there are people all over that are connected to your church that never will be in your building. So there they are. It's interesting. That's a challenge. How do you handle those groups of people and at the exact same time the other groups of people? And I don't know. It's an interesting challenge.
The term we're hearing, the term we're using, what we're trying to live up to is we're now an online church with a physical presence.
Yeah.
What that means, I don't know, but that's what we have become.
Yeah. It was his music minister that really revealed to me very well was we are a multi-church campus. We have to recognize that is a different group of people sometimes. Some are crossovers all over the place. Some will come back. Some will never come back to your buildings. I don't know how to, at least not for a while. And so that's just the reality of the world we live in. It's got some challenges ahead of us. But I look forward to encouraging people to come up with ways to be creative. And I'm always looking for what you guys are doing to see if it's working. You know, and I'm going to ask challenging questions like, is it working? I don't know. The response is like, I don't know. How do I know? I can read some stats, but, you know, in Facebook it says they've been on there for 3 seconds. Like literally they watch it, okay, and then boom, they're distracted. They're off to something else already. So, and I meant to mention this earlier. I don't know, none of you are the preachers, right? The main preachers? Okay, good. Is they don't watch your whole service. I mean, some people do, yes, and the members who are regular do. But the rest of the world, pieces of it. They're watching segments of it because they're looking for content. And so you can actually categorize your content in YouTube where you can have different types of content that in the same service. So you can actually, people can search for content in your channels. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty sophisticated, but it's pretty neat. So yeah, if they're looking for specifically something related to hope, and you're generally talking about it, they can narrow it down. So it's a challenge. Awesome. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for letting me be here, and I appreciate Bob and Richard Hills and everybody else and PSK people and all the rest of you for being here. And the people online, didn't forget about you.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Remote work. Yeah, sorry about that. For you people at home, sorry about that. Managing a remote workforce, Steve Pegler, November the 19th. And if you just watch the things that we send out, it will tell you whether it's going to be a Zoom meeting or it will be in person. Probably be a Zoom meeting, but we'll let you know. Any other questions or anything before we close? Again, thank you for joining us online and for in person. All right, y'all have a great day.